So this Valentine's Day, create the most beautiful table topper with an open center to house an extravagant Valentine's Day gift for the ones you love. Sometimes people need a visual cue that it's time to buy you flowers. And like all things, flowers need a place to stand proud and beautiful. This was a very cool project. Come here. Look at how beautiful this is, the front and the back. I mean, think of it. You can take this outdoors on a patio table, stick an umbrella through it. It's perfect. You've never been able to do that with your quilted projects before, but now you can. And this is how I did it. I start with 32 of the half square triangles, and I lay them out in a pattern that I think is great. And of course, I'm keeping the center open because that's the whole point of this. Well, when you've laid out a nice pattern, and this is a Quilt-As-You-Go project, how do you get this over to the Quilt-As-You-Go method? Well, you have to divide this up, and there's many ways to do it. I studied this, I even looked for videos on it, and I found nothing. So my way only, the way I prefer, is I have decided that these these 2 rows of 8, okay, these little squares, this section of 8 will be its own section, this section of 8 will be another, as will this and as will that. So we're dividing this in 4s, and it takes 8 little squares for each of that. So let me clear the table a minute to show you what's next. With these 8 squares, that's where we're going to start the Quilt-As-You-Go process. Now, Quilt-As-You-Go means we're sewing through batting and backing. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and cut a backing the size that this is going to require. Now, my HSTs, my half square triangles, they're 2.5 inches square. That's the size of those. When I sew them all together onto a piece of backing with a piece of batting on it, the finished size of this, the batting piece I have here is 8.5 by 4.5 inches, and the backing piece is exactly 2 inches more, so it's 10.5 by 6.5, okay? This is what we're going to be sewing it onto, but we can't do it just yet. We need to take these 8 little squares, and I need to fold them down and stitch a 1/4 inch seam across the top of each of these, okay? So we're going to come back to the table with 4 pairs that are kind of sewn together already. And that is where we'll start the Quilt-As-You-Go. So take these over and do a little stitch line across them and meet me back here. I'm just pressing these open really quick, and then we are going to be ready to start sewing these onto this batting and backing fabric. Okay, so here's our 4. Let me trade places with this stuff. All right, this is our design for 1 of the 4ths of this, remember. And the good part about this design is going to be the exact same one we use on all 4 pieces of backing and batting. So that's the look we're going for on all 4. So before we do that, I want to kind of lay out where these go. Obviously, we're going to flip these 2 center ones over, face to face, and I'm going to stitch them down the center of this piece of batting, right? Well, my stitching line, I do want it to be right in the center, but we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I have to allow for that. So I'm going to actually measure over. This is 8.5 inches wide. Half of that is 4 1/4. So let me start with my 4 1/4. I'm doing 4 1/4 from the end, and I'm going to subtract, because I'm left-handed, a 1/4 inch. This is where my actual edge of my fabric will lie. Because if I stitch a 1/4 inch in here right now, that 1/4 inch stitch is going to be exactly at 4 1/4 inches, okay? So stitch this down first. We're going to press it open, of course. Then we're going to lay this side on it and do it, and lay this side on it and do the same thing, all right? So here we are, we're going to open this up, and I'm just going to give this a little press, okay? And now the same thing we just did, I'm going to take this right sides together, I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch line here and open it up, and I'll do the same with this other piece. So this is my last piece. I'm just pressing the last piece open here. And you can see this is one of 4, okay? This is my top corner of the design. It's going to be great. My backing is going to look pretty no matter what we do because it's a great fabric that we've got, especially for Valentine's Day. So I want you to do this exact same thing with the next 3 pieces of backing and batting that you have. Duplicate this design. So once we have 4 of those, we'll get back together and join them together. So now's the fun part. We have 4 identical rectangular quilt blocks that are quilted all the way through because of the Quilt-As-You-Go method. So I'm going to put these together. Remember, our original design looked like this. Now keep in mind, we have seams covering up all the good stuff, but this was our initial design. So we're only going to join 2 pieces together at a time, so I want to set these 2 aside. And let's talk about these 2 a second. What I want you to do is raise the seam allowance up and pull them together. It helps if you look at them from the top. I'm even going to stand up to look at this. Top looking down, and arrange them so they're tight together, okay? Now what we're going to do is literally pick this up like this, take it to the sewing machine, and I am going to stitch a line starting at this corner where the batting and the fabric is, all the way down off the edge, okay? Start at this corner, don't go all the way up here yet. Start right here and go all the way off the edge, and then we'll come back and seal that one down. Okay, so now you can see I have stitched the short seam allowance down. Time to join the next piece, all right? Our next piece of the puzzle fits down here. And I'm going to continue to ignore the long seam allowance. We're not at that point yet. So to join the 3rd piece, it's just like joining the first 2. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to pull the seam allowances up into the center here. And again, I'm going to stitch a line from this corner, from the corner of my quilt block, off the end. And then we're going to come back and fold down and sew this short seam down just like this. I want you to do this for this seam, and then I want you to bring this one in and do it for this seam, and finally do it for the last seam. We're only working on the short seam allowances right now. Okay, so the small seams are done, right? I have stitched this small one down, I've stitched this one, and this one. That's really the trick here. Once you've done that, the rest is just so easy because now it's time to work on the long strips, and we're going to again fold them in half again, and stitch all the way across. That's what we're going to do on all 4, and then we're going to come back and talk about finishing this up. And this is the final product. It is so beautiful, but wait, the front is real pretty because we have a pattern on it, but look at the back. Because of the material we chose, these are all the hearts. It looks so nice. This is perfect for a Valentine's Day project, and we've made several others. I did this one. Beautiful on the back as well. Think about these things. This open center allows you to use your table toppers on an outdoor patio table that has an umbrella that goes through it. You haven't been able to use them outside on outdoor furniture before, but now you can. Look at this one. This would be beautiful for the spring. So I'm going to go back to the start. Happy Valentine's Day. And if you need to leave a hint, that's how you do it. And happy sewing.